Hey listeners, before we get into today's podcast, I want to thank today's sponsors, first of which is Pretentious Pickles. Our good friends at Pretentious Pickles, located right here in Plymouth, Massachusetts on 190 Water Street, have a huge variety of pickled items for your consumption. There's pickled beets, Brussels sprouts, carrots, mushrooms, cucumbers, you name it, they've put it in a jar and pickled it. They make a phenomenal product, and for the second year in a row have been won Best Gourmet Shop in the South Shore, Massachusetts area. So congratulations to Lorraine and everyone at Pretentious Pickle Company. And if you can't make it to their store, you can stop by www.pretentiouspickle.com, and you can place an order online, and they'll ship it right to you. If you're into pickles, you should definitely check that out. And our second sponsor today is Hellofresh. Do you feel like you're stuck in a dinner rut? With Hellofresh, you get fresh, pre-measured ingredients with mouth-watering seasonal recipes delivered right to your door. Skip all those trips to the grocery store and count on Hellofresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. You can now enjoy cooking and get dinner on the table in 30 minutes or less with over 25 recipes to choose from each week. There's something for everyone to enjoy. All recipes are designed and tested by professional chefs and nutritional experts to ensure delicious and simplicity. And I was just over there on their website checking out what they have to offer. And I'm telling you, it's making me super hungry. We have a prosciutto wrapped chicken, which I'm such a sucker for prosciutto. Chicken over garlic parm, which looks delicious. And even a beef tenderloin and brown butter veggies. There's a lot to choose from over there. It looks fantastic. And today they're offering our listeners a discount. You can go to the link in our show notes to get $80 off, including free shipping on HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit.
Across the line, the Gulf Stream, I've been in Tampa Bay, around the horn, and home again, 'cause that is the sailor's way.
Welcome back to the Old Colony Cast, a podcast about all things Plymouth and surrounding areas. I am your host, Andy. I am joined today by our executive producer. You just got promoted. How do you like that? And chief editor. 2 promotions one day. Fish.
I can't wait to talk about the raises.
No, they're just in title only. Sorry.
Oh, then
he looks good on your resume.
Oh, then fine. Okay,
right.
Cool.
And our co-host, Hanna.
Hello.
Hanna Gonzalez Dowling.
There you go.
There we go. Stop hitting me.
Okay, and can we not have a callback to literally a different show?
A different show? Yeah,
Well,
I mean, we can.
just so
but
people know.
Yeah, so
May
Hanna
or may not
was
have come
recently on the Bar Talk podcast. It is either just came out or is coming out next week. So swing over there, and we talked about prohibition.
Yeah.
And specifically kind of like Massachusetts, Plymouth-y kind of laws and incidents. So it was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. I feel like if you like this podcast, definitely listen to that specific episode because it's just this podcast on
Right. But,
On that podcast.
Yeah. In more of a drinky way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was cool.
It was a lot of fun. It was good having you. So it's either the episode preceding this or after this. So if it's not up yet, go, next week.
Keep an
check.
eye and ear out for it.
But that was then. This is now. So, Hanna, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about something that I think thought was and I still think it's a good idea to talk about, but I want to underline this episode and give everyone almost, I don't want to say a trigger warning.
Content warning?
I feel like, content trigger warning.
Yeah.
I mean, because
It's the closest history we've talked about in a while. Like,
no, Hernandez was more recent.
it's closer to more people. Like,
That's
how much
true.
did
Okay,
yeah. So
like you are, if you're listening, you're more likely to know someone involved.
Yes, exactly. So we're going to talk about the Station Nightclub fire. And I think usually when we talk about things, we have some air of like comedy to it. I watched a lot of stuff about this today, and I'm going to just say right off the bat, I was feeling pretty down when I left my house. Like,
Oof.
yeah, it was like...
We were talking just before we started recording. So the morning after this occurred, I received a phone call on my house phone. That's how long ago it was. From my cousin, And I answered. She's like, okay, I'm just making sure you're okay. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea what had happened. And then I said that I have met people who were in this fire.
Yeah.
So I don't know them well, but I've met them. So
Right.
I mean, it affected a lot of people. So
Certainly.
it's
very
a heavy
local.
issue. Yeah.
I think it's, is it the first one we've done out of state? Because this is Rhode Island.
I think.
I think since you've joined.
Since I've joined.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Extra, I just think Rhode Island, sorry, Rhode Island is just like extra South Massachusetts or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's our backyard. Like
Yeah.
we can literally just go. It's closer than some parts of Massachusetts and where we are
It is
now.
closer
So
than
especially when you
most
live
of
on.
it.
So when you live
Yeah.
on like South Coast, South Shore, like going to Rhode Island is easier than getting to somewhere.
Western Mass,
Yeah.
for sure.
I mean,
yeah.
But you have like the Mayflower, and then you have that little boat next to it. So like when you go to the Mayflower, you see them both.
Yeah.
So Mayflower's Massachusetts, Rhode Island's that little boat.
Oh, okay. I literally was like, what is he setting up? Do they have that boat in Rhode Island
No,
right now?
I was trying to make a Mayflower reference to Rhode Island.
I liked it.
All right, thanks.
But we lend boats and like trade, touristy attraction boats so frequently. I was like, did we lend Rhode Island that little?
We could have at some
shallop?
point.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what it was. Shallop. I was trying to remember what
yeah.
it was called.
I'm like, dang, I didn't know.
No, we did not.
I also, sad to admit, I didn't notice how long the Mayflower was gone for. So like one day I was like, I want to go downtown and like see the Mayflower, and my friends were like, "Are you joking with us?" And I was like, "Yes, what is there?" And they're like, "It's been gone for 2 years."
Yeah,
I
it's
was
gone
like,
for a long time.
What? And I'm like, I just always imagine it right there. Anyway, I digress. We're getting off topic.
Mm-hmm.
So February, we'll go back to the night. It's February 20th, 2003 in West Warwick, Rhode Island. 462 people were in attendance at the station nightclub fire. I couldn't differentiate if in attendance sounds like everyone that was just in the building. So, and people that worked there, people in the band, or people that were let into the building.
I would think that number would be the people who were paid to go to the show.
Admitted in.
I think if you count the band, you're not really going to make a huge difference. There's like 5 guys in the
employees.
band. But employees, that
Yeah.
could be a different number.
It was set capacity was 404.
So they had already exceeded capacity.
Correct. And usually when they talk capacity too, they don't consider
Employees.
Employees.
Yeah, employees
exactly.
aren't people.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That sounds like I'm like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But no, that's really it's
Yeah.
Man,
when-
that's the voice of management right there.
yeah. It's so true when you look at when I would have to do counts for
COVID, you didn't count the employees.
Yeah.
exactly. So you remember who the headliner was?
Oh, it was Great White.
Great, right? That's right. And
Which back in the day, I was a fan of.
oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize they sang that song.
Once Bitten, Twice Shy.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right.
I was a fan.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I do know this.
I
one.
listened to a lot of hair metal when I was a kid.
That's good.
There was a reason why my cousin called.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So they had just started playing their song "Desert Moon." Do you know,
Okay. I don't know if I know that one.
I don't know what album it was off of, but that was the song they started playing, and the band's manager decided that's like when they were going to set off their pyrotechnics for the night.
Which I've never seen pyrotechnics in a club.
Like that, no. Like
I
a
don't
club
think-
like that?
Yeah, I've never seen in any club. I've never been in a club small enough where if they weren't setting up pyrotechnics, I'd be like, I feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, it just kind of felt weird that was even a thing.
I don't, maybe just like because they're a hair metal band. Like I've seen Iron Maiden and they had
Yeah.
plenty of it, but it was at
But like stadiums.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Right. So they were like, let's make it. You know, as far as pyrotechnics go, these were of the smaller brand.
Right.
Quote, I'm quoting that, air quoting, but they were not by any means appropriate
No.
for this building.
No.
Among other things. But the pyrotechnics were set up in the back of the stage in front of like the drummer area. 4 of them were set off. They were kind of facing up and out and then off to the side, which is where they got into trouble because it was very close to the wall.
Yeah.
They used a type of pyrotechnic called a gerb,
Okay.
and it's pretty much a firework that stands still. Like, it doesn't get shot off. It stays exactly where it is, and it continues to spark spark-looking things.
It's a big, heavy-duty sparkler.
Yeah, I mean, and they were big. They're
Yeah,
like
yeah.
2 feet tall.
Yeah.
Or long. Because I guess
I don't remember where, but I saw like video of the pyrotechnics starting to go up, like the beginnings of the fire.
Yeah, so I can talk about that now. Well, no, because I'll have to find the name of the gentleman. But there's someone there with a camera, and he worked for this like local, like we have PAC TV.
Oh, like the local
the
cable
cable
access.
access.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And so he was there filming. So that's the footage you see. That's like the famous footage. And it goes on for just short of 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So it shows everything.
Yeah.
Like everything. It's really crazy. I'll talk about that a little bit more. So the gerb is set to last about 15 to 60 seconds. These ones lasted about closer to a minute.
Okay.
And like I said, they used 4 of them, and the sparks were reaching about 15 feet. So even if like they were...
I've never been in the station.
Yeah.
But again, who's got 15 feet ceilings in a...
No, they did not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
No, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Fish knows what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. And the sparks were obviously hitting the walls like we talked about, which was layered in highly flammable acoustic foam. So,
which
like,
most venues like that are.
yeah, and
'cause
it's
they're,
the egg crate looking things
Right.
that
which are mostly air and plastic.
it's 2 layers of it.
Yeah.
Right? And there were 2 different types of the soundproof that they used. So there was a urethane foam, which is the more flammable and produced like a really thick toxic smoke. And it released carbon monoxide. I mean, obviously it's fire, but
Yeah.
it's like it was heavy.
Extra,
Yes. And the hydrogen cyanide.
Oh, jeez.
oof.
And the mixture, obviously, it caused not only visibility
Yeah.
issues, but it caused like
Breathing issues?
breathing issues.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
lose consciousness and cause confusion and chaos more.
Right.
So in the time that the gerbs were lit and they were up for maybe a minute, it took 30 seconds for them to catch the wall. And from the 30 seconds into them playing, it wasn't even a minute later that they stopped and there was a full crowd rush from the stage. It's like if you blinked for a slightly longer normal period than you would naturally, and there were flames completely covering the back of the stage and the walls.
And I wonder, being a concert goer, if I saw the pyrotechnics go off, I would like to think that I'd be like, okay, time's to go.
Yeah.
But you'd also assume that someone knew what they were doing. So if it continued to burn, you might be like, this is a heavy stage show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think from the visual you get in the video, a lot of people in the crowd knew it wasn't good, and the lead singer of Great White, after 30 seconds after like the initial fire was caught and he sees the smoke and the flames, I think he says something, he's like, that's not good, something like that.
Yeah.
So which gave people a little bit more of a increased urgency
Time to go.
of
Yeah.
the situation. Because you're right. If you don't know how things are supposed to go in a situation like that, you might think it's
No, this is part of the stage
Maybe
show.
Yeah.
maybe the back wall's supposed to be on fire right now.
Yeah.
right. You never know. And they took over within minutes from the time that video starts, and that like, there's 3.5 minutes out of the building, and the flames are like coming out of the windows.
Yeah.
So it was a recipe for the
Bad news.
for that situation to happen. If pyrotechnics were never introduced, obviously never would have happened. But there's also different things along the way that could have helped prevent what
Yeah.
happened. There's an exit near the stage. There's an exit, I believe, through or near the kitchen, and one on the side of the bar, and then their main exit. So many of the people tried to escape the way they knew naturally that
The main exit,
that they came
yeah.
in. So which was the entrance. Few people made it out of all the other exits. There is some people who say when they tried to go through the exit closest to the stage, which was already really close to the flames, so a lot of people weren't trying to like run that way, but everyone was going everywhere. They said that a bouncer stopped them and said that it was for the band only.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he didn't understand the urgency of the situation.
Yeah.
Which that's a weird random factoid I found on Google. It doesn't say who said it. It doesn't say where it came from. It doesn't give any other description than that. Which you'd hate to think that was a misguided, like someone not thinking it was okay to do something.
Yeah,
break the rules.
It sounds like it's someone who doesn't realize the gravity of what's going on.
Right. So, with everyone rushing towards the front exit, which had 2 doors from inside the club that fed people into essentially a funnel, a longer hallway before they could officially escape through the door, which created a crowd crush.
Yeah.
So you're thinking over 400 people
trying to squeeze through.
Most of them are trying to go through there.
And now, I don't know if I'm jumping ahead. That's what I do.
That's okay.
If memory serves, there's an issue with some set of those doors opening in instead of out.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a thing.
Yeah.
Because people were not able to like get the doors open.
Right, because you can't pull a door open when 400 people are trying to rush through it. Yeah.
So what ended up happening by just maybe 2 minutes into the fire starting is a physical blockage of so many people, and crowd crush is awful. So there's now people on the ground in a wall barricading the doors from other. So like it's chaos, like feeding chaos. Like it's just awful to watch. And obviously awful for the people. I did go back and watch an interview with a guy who was pulled out from the bottom of the pile of people.
Yeah.
And he was somehow fortunately alive and was gotten before the flames took over the whole building. And it's like a 20-minute long interview. I wish I remembered his name, but he just talks about like he literally just how he was somehow miraculously able to sit up. Like he was just able to sit up and didn't know how or why that he was okay. And he was like the one literally closest to the ground, but maybe that kind of like, since he wasn't crushed, it might have saved him from flames. And he said there was a woman behind him who was literally like severely burned, and he had minor burns on him.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was happening, like with the toxic smoke and stuff,
if he was down towards the ground, he would have been able to avoid some of that.
Yeah. And then also the materials, I guess, were like melting.
Oh, okay.
So, like, it wasn't just the flames hitting people.
Right,
it's
right.
Like melting materials.
Melting plastic.
Yes.
Yeah. Ugh.
Which is awful. So that, WPRI TV was there in the one recording it, and he literally started recording as soon as the band was playing. So like you get to see the flames take off, the confusion start to happen, and he is one of the I say one of the first, but you can't really tell from the video. But he's out before a lot of people are.
Yeah.
And that video runs, like I said, for another 10 minutes. So you see people breaking through windows and crawling out. You see people running out of whatever exit they can make it out of.
Right.
They are trying to do that. And police and firemen have showed up and have now tried to pulling people out of that crowd crush that's happening. You hear people like calling out for anyone they were with that did make it out of the building.
Oh, that's gonna be so horrible.
Yeah, it was really wild to see. And then just so happens to be that one of the owners of the club is a news reporter.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I guess he was like, there was some conflict because he did report on the scenario.
Oh. That's definitely seems like a conflict of interest.
I need to jump up and see what his name is. Jeffrey.
I feel like I'm going to recognize when I hear
Jeffrey Desjardins?
Desjardins?
Yes, I think. Yes, Desjardins. Yeah. Or Darien. But
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I think it's maybe French. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, he was like one of the first reporters on it, and he also owned the building.
That's weird.
Yeah, and it felt really weird.
So I feel like if that was my building burning, I'd be like, yeah, I'm not going to report. Like,
yeah, to Darien. It was literally next to my notes, and I jumped ahead. I'm like, what's his name? I need to find it. That was quite
Right there,
literally
yeah.
the next note I had. So that's just a really trying to be not as graphic as possible description of how it broke down and probably more time than it actually happened.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, because what is our recording time right now?
We are at just over 18 minutes.
So this is like 4 times as long as that was.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
So the building itself was an older building. We're going to talk about like the downfall, why this happened, and who's to blame, who's not to blame, that kind of thing. 1946, so it's older.
Okay, that's jumping back a bit. That was more than I was expecting to go back.
Yeah, and it's 4,484 square feet. And because of building code exceptions made for certain buildings built before a certain time, where it was a newer club but used to be restaurant, it fell under a certain building code where it did not need an automatic fire sprinkler system.
Okay.
But it was a club, so it should have had one.
Oh, okay. So if it was just a restaurant,
Yes.
it didn't need one.
Right.
But
It was a club with music, and it needed one.
Okay.
It needed that system in. And somehow they got away with it during inspections, which that's up in the air as like a real heavy debate.
As to how
they got away with it. And
not saying Rhode Island has a reputation for being a little on the corrupt side,
But, I mean, yeah, we're very specifically not saying that.
yes.
Yeah.
Some people would say that.
So
And we'd just not say anything but nod. Yeah.
that's obviously has a big piece in it. So if their correct coding was up to par,
Yeah.
they would have had to.
They would have had a sprinkler system.
Yeah, they would have had to. They wouldn't have been able to function without it. The National Institute of Standards and Technology did some testing on it because this is now obviously something that went through court.
Yeah.
So
I remember there were trials and I think there's some prison sentences at the end.
yeah.
Yeah.
was who ran the tests for what scenarios. So like the argument was like, would the sprinklers have made a difference? So they obviously had to go and test that scenario when
Right.
looking at passing judgment on like how long who should get what, whatever.
Right.
So they found that yes, the sprinklers would have, in fact,
Are you saying a fire suppression system would have suppressed the fire?
Given them enough time. I think because of the material specifically and how flammable it was, that was like the argument. It's like, well, it wouldn't have mattered because.
I mean, of course it would.
Yes, I know.
I mean, I'm not saying it would have saved the building, but, you know. It
Would have saved people.
Would have saved people, would have knocked some of the smoke out of the air,
Yep.
and would have slowed the fire's progression.
Right. That seems obvious.
It does, doesn't it?
Even if you're not part of the National Institute of Standards and Technology.
Oh, did I tell you guys I just got a job at the National Institute?
But it's one of those things that it is very, very obvious, but until you like...
It's very, very obvious, but when
you still have to explain it to a court of law.
I was going to say, when you're a
yeah.
defense attorney, you want it to be
Right.
spelled out and
Yes.
not assumed.
So the cause and blame was put on to as many people involved as possible. I think that there's still a couple things that some people are unhappy about. That the band manager was tried.
Mm-hmm.
The lead singer who hired the band manager, and that's who was working for him,
Yeah.
was never involved, charged,
Legally,
or anything. And so obviously the band manager, I guess they go back and forth saying that it was the band manager's idea to have the pyrotechnics. He never got permission from the club. The club never gave permission. The lead singers, someone says it's the lead singer's idea to have the pyrotechnics, and he didn't know the band manager, or didn't get permission, or someone
Yeah.
didn't know, and everyone's just passing the buck
Everyone's
around.
pointing fingers, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And at the end of the day, the band manager ended up like actually taking the blame for it. Daniel Bichelle,
That name doesn't
Bichelle, I think is how you pronounce it. And the two owners of the club, Jeffrey and Michael
Yeah.
Deirdre. So, two different people. Now, there ended up being 100 deaths.
Okay. Out of 400 and some odd people.
Yes, most of which, I think it was 31 of them were right at the front door.
Ugh.
Yeah. So, like, there was a little case map, obviously,
Yeah.
of where people were found.
Yeah.
It's like by the back exit, in the office, in the bathroom.
Because I'm sure those people were just looking to get out in some way.
Exactly.
you
But yeah, most of them were found in
Yeah.
the front of the building. Now, they were all tried for involuntary manslaughter for each of the people.
100 case. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Now, I did not know how this would like go for them. Like, I'm like, because manslaughter is that weird thing. It's like, you know, people who I don't know anyone, but it's like when someone like accidentally hits someone.
Right.
It's, like,
It's
you're
not
like,
something that you did on purpose.
it's like, oh, they got 6 years. You're like, oh, that feels light. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, oh, I get it, because mistakes happen. That's an awful mistake. I'm sure that
Right.
person never ever forgives himself.
Yeah, and then you run into the
like, is it a mistake? Is it
an
intentional negligence?
Well,
Like,
yeah, that's the kicker. Is it they died because you screwed up, or you died because of a systemic fault on your part?
Right. So the band manager goes in for sentencing. I mean, in December of the next year, they're all already in court. So like this, which is pretty quick for stuff like that, especially in such a case, because the firemen describe trying to help people and like resolve the issue, but it's a crime scene.
Right.
So there's also some preservation of the area that needs to happen, and there's no way they could have really done that because of how much they were
You're just trying to put the fire out.
trying to save as many people as they could. So there's a lot going on. So the band manager, I read somewhere he pleaded guilty, and then I read it another thing that he pled no contest.
Okay.
Which is different, which means you don't go to court. But he did go to court, so I'm going to assume the not guilty thing was the more accurate one. Well, you avoid, like, it's not the whole court scenario, but it's like you avoid certain parts of it.
Well, I feel like if you plead not... I feel like anyone who goes into any court situation, they automatically enter a not guilty plea.
Yeah.
So that might have been the... No
Maybe.
contest sounds more like a fine, because you're not going to plead not guilty kind of like at the end of your case.
Well,
So-
it said that he pled not guilty against his lawyers. Like,
Advice?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because he just said, I want this to be over with, to bring peace. This dude was, like, not having a good time with this on his
That
conscience.
doesn't make sense.
Okay, do you want me to explain the difference?
Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
because no contest sounds like what he would plead.
Okay, so
Well, no contest just means
There-
you're
there
going
are
to
three
take
pleas.
whatever
Right,
it is.
right.
Yeah.
there are three pleas. There is not guilty, which is you're refusing to admit to the crime, and you think the state can't convict you.
Right.
There is guilty, where you flat out, yeah, I did it. And then there is no contest. No contest, you're not admitting fault, but you're admitting that the state can convict you.
Wait,
Okay.
did I say he pled not guilty?
Not guilty.
I meant to say guilty.
Okay, that's why I'm like, this doesn't make any
That's-
sense.
yeah.
Because I'm like, they're not going to end the course and you'd be like, I'm not guilty. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. You know, that's why I'm like, I don't think that's...
Sorry,
okay, all right.
that
That's So he pled guilty.
Yeah, I was saying
Instead
the
of
wrong
no- okay,
thing.
all right.
But
Instead-
I
yeah.
believe it
Makes
ended up...
way more sense
I believe I think it boiled down to him just being, no contest, because the two brothers who own the club did the same thing.
Yeah.
But I think his lawyer was like, no, you have a real chance at not being guilty
So
of
it sounded like
this.
he was like, I'm at fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Taking some...
Well, good for him.
Yeah, he
You know,
actually
that's-
has this really long thing that he spoke to at court. For 3 years, I've wanted to be able to speak to the people that were affected by this tragedy, but I know that there's nothing I can say or do that will undo what happened that night. Since the fire, I've wanted to tell the victims and their families how truly sorry I am for what happened that night and the part I had in it. I never wanted anyone to be hurt in any way. I never imagined that anyone ever would be. I know how this tragedy has devastated me, but I can only begin to understand what the people who have lost loved ones have endured. I don't know that I'll ever forgive myself for what happened that night, so I can't expect anyone else to. I can only pray that they understand that I would do anything to undo what happened that night and give them back their loved ones. I'm so sorry for what I have done, and I don't want to cause anyone any more pain. I will never forget that night, and I will never forget the people that were hurt by it. I'm so sorry.
Huh. So it definitely sounds like he was.
Yeah, that's about as admission of fault as I'm going to get. So, no, I did it. I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
I am so sorry.
And with his sentencing, and with both of them, I'm going to be totally transparent. They, so confusing the way they were sentenced. So it was like he got 15 years, but 11 of them were like uncontested, something like that. So like pretty much at the end of it boiled down to him just being 4 years and then probation or community service or whatever. And not him specifically, but between the three of them, they all had this weird thing happening where it's like they didn't actually serve that much jail time.
Like you get sentenced to like 15 years and you do like 4.
Yeah,
for some legally reason.
Yeah, and it's the way that it was put, the way the 15 years was actually divvied up.
The legal system's so bizarre because it's like that's why you get sentences like, oh, he was sentenced to life and a day.
Yeah,
you know?
So it's a suspended sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a suspended sentence means
if they screw up again,
if
then
you
they
screw up
serve the
again,
whole
you are
time.
serving the other 11 years.
Okay, I was
So-
like, what's that mean? How is he suspended?
So basically, if you get 15, but 11 of it is suspended,
Yep.
you serve you 4 years, and then the 11 are basically sitting there, and we'll just add on to anything else you get convicted of.
Gotcha. So,
And I'm not sure how fine it is. I don't know if it's
I'm sure there's some sort of statute of
I'm
limitation
assu-
on it or something.
right.
I don't know, and I also don't know what the threshold is.
Yeah.
Well, he was out up for parole in 2007, and I think ended up completely being out of prison in 2009 with the endorsement of a lot of the families,
Oh wow.
I believe.
This is the tour manager.
Yes.
Okay.
I
I can see that because he generally sounded.
And obviously, there were people who were not on that, and didn't feel that way. But there were from both sides of it. He was out fairly early.
Yeah.
2009, and the two owners were charged, and they both pled no contest to skip all the trial. And they same thing. There's one of the brothers, I believe it was Richard, who. Just he had less involvement with the club. I believe one owned more than the other.
Like one of might have just been like the money guy or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it was Richard. He had to serve up to 11 years suspended sentence, while Jeffrey was just 10 years suspended, 3 years probation and 500 hours of community service, and then his brother was 3 years of probation and without the community service.
Which some of that I understand. Like if you invest your money in this club,
Right.
and you have someone running it, you assume they're doing things up and up.
Yeah.
And you're just
Right.
the money guy.
And I believe Michael was also released in 2009, so they served their time already,
Yeah.
which is weird to think about.
Well, it was 18 years ago.
I know, but it's just so
Yeah,
crazy.
it was 18 years ago, and it seems like
Oh my God, my son was born. Like that didn't occur to me. That like Liam was already alive.
yes, Liam was a person at that point.
There were, like I said, 100 deaths. I think it was like 246 injuries. That goes without saying.
Yeah.
Like, and how extreme they were from minor to very. One band member.
One band member died. Was it the bassist?
Yeah, I believe so. And people said that he initially got out but went back in to try and save his instrument.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's kind of foolish.
Yeah. 4 employees
Ugh.
were caught in it as well. And I mean, that's because of that, so many things have changed. I should add too, there was a lot of civil payouts. $115 million paid out in total to the victims and their families. I started listing down like who paid out what, and I was like,
between the band and insurance companies and the club.
it's a lot.
Yeah.
And then I think it was even the Sealed Air Corporation, which is like part of
the bubble wrap people?
Yep. And then
Wait, what?
Wait, did they make the soundproofing?
I think they did.
Oh,
That makes sense.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
And JBL speakers.
Why did JBL speakers?
I don't know, man, but they paid out. Like,
Wow.
they had like a lot of like just from everywhere. They got stuff from
That's weird.
everywhere. Yeah, it was a lot. So I was like, this is probably in the grand scheme of everything. I'm glad that victims were compensated in some way, but nothing will ever.
Yeah, I mean,
even
yeah.
remotely
Yeah.
close to like traumatization of that night and just having their loved ones back if they had lost anyone. So we talked about the code changes that happened the other day.
Yeah.
A little bit. One was having that a certified crowd control manager.
Correct. Yep. Which is exactly what. I remember we were discussing that.
You just have to get a quick certification. I have a friend who is, and
So they're the
have it on you.
the doorman / bouncer
Yes.
person.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And any nightclub within the higher than a 100-person occupancy is required to have an automatic fire sprinkler system.
And that was part of what we're discussing because the one person who we're talking with is like, my capacity is at 99.
Yeah.
So I fall just under that.
I feel like there's sprinklers there too.
There is, but I think
Yeah.
they were talking about the crowd control.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
like the
Oh,
crowd
yeah,
control
yeah, yeah.
specialist
I'm
isn't
like-
technically
I
necessary.
feel like most responsible owners of a business just put in whatever safety measures they need
Yeah,
to.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where it's a lot cheaper to install sprinklers than to replace your burned down building.
Yep.
And pay
And
what did you
pay
say,
God
15
knows-
million?
Yeah, I know.
Was it 15 or 150?
I think it was 115.
150 million,
million,
yeah. And there was a moratorium on pyrotechnics in any venues that would hold 300 people or less in Rhode Island. So it pretty much moved it to just
Right.
big arenas.
Which to me, I mean, to this day, I don't understand that.
No.
Because I've seen lots of concerts, but I've never seen anyone. Oh, wait, maybe. I don't know if it counts. I saw someone like juggling fire, but
Yeah.
that seems less dangerous.
I went to a club in Chicago, and the band we see notoriously lights their instruments on fire with lighter fluid.
Yeah.
And because of like seeing this on the news when I did, I literally was like, "Where are my exits?"
Yep. Which I was going to bring
Yeah.
up. That's always like a good mental note, like when you go into a club venue. Mm-hmm. You don't have to like panic. Just
Just no.
make mental notes where the other exits are
Yeah.
opposed to the main one.
Right. So Governor Kitchery, I believe he was the governor at the time. He's quoted as saying, we talked about it right at the beginning. If you didn't have a loved one, you knew someone that did.
Yeah.
That was in it.
Yeah, it was very close to home.
And then I think I told you I remember seeing this, and it wasn't so everyone. This is like apples and oranges, but when you're thinking of devastating things you see on the news,
Yeah.
9/11 obviously comes to mind.
Of course, yeah.
I didn't get to see that in real time like so many people did, and not like this.
Oh,
was-
9/11?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Which like not upset about.
Yeah,
I've
you shouldn't be.
I've seen it,
'Cause
but
it was
not in
pretty
real
horrible.
time. Yeah, and
Yeah, it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
And this was not in real time, but the news crew got a hold of that footage so quickly because of the person that worked there
Yeah.
filming it. So I saw it as close to real time as possible.
Right.
And like news crews right there, right after the
Yeah.
fire had gone down or whatever. So I was like at the Radisson in Plymouth for free roast beef night with my mom. And I was just watching this, and it felt like I was like, "Is this real?" Like, you know what I mean? I was like, "Is this really happening?" It was pretty wild, even to think back on. But yeah, you're right. Those moments you see like makes you think about when you go to a venue. Like
It's the thing.
Yeah.
The thing that really struck home for me was, I knew of the band. I listened to the band when I was younger, and if someone had called my ex-wife and was like, "Hey, do you want to go see Great White?" we would have been at the show.
right,
Like that's totally the kind of thing that we would have gone to.
right.
And so like when my cousin called me, I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And she's like, put on the news, whatever. It was like, whew, I feel like that was relatively like dodging a bullet.
Yeah.
Like that, I could have, in the multiverse, there is an Andy that was at
in the
for
multiverse
sure.
at this point, there isn't an Andy anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I watched a lot of stuff on the news, not in real time, like
Yeah.
today, from the 10-year anniversary. There's currently a memorial set up for them in Rhode Island. There's funds that are there. I think they're still accepting to set up a permanent memorial for them. And we're going to be coming up on the 20-year anniversary.
20-year anniversary soon, yeah.
Yeah, sooner than later, for sure. And the singer from Great White has done a couple interviews.
Yeah.
I guess he, same sentiments as everyone, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't anything different. There was one concert he did on the anniversary, not for it, but he was offered all the fundings to go to the
Right.
memorial for it. And it actually got denied.
Really?
Yes.
They were like, we don't want your money?
Yeah, I think so.
That's weird.
It didn't go into details why or anything.
Huh.
And then he ended up donating it to one of the people there. Was going to be opening them for them the next night, but he
Yeah.
was there seeing them play that night. He was in a band that was going to be opening.
Right.
So I think it went to like
His family or something.
his family
Yeah.
or no, you know what it was? They talked a lot about that guy that was there, but it was his bassist family.
Oh,
his
okay.
bassist
Yeah,
had
yeah.
passed away
Yeah.
there. And yeah, I mean, all the fire safety inspection stuff, I'm sure, has like never been the same. It's the 4th deadliest nightclub fire in U.S. history.
Yeah.
Number 1, I believe, was one in Boston that happened a long time ago.
Yeah.
And
It's probably the most deadly in recent memory by
Yeah.
a long shot.
yep. And I think there was one that had just happened 3 days like prior in a completely different state. That was pretty bad, but it was like 20 people.
Yeah. I just remember the fallout was, at the time people wanted to lynch the owners.
Yeah.
And then like the more that people started looking into it, it was a whole systemic, like there were inspection issues that had gotten passed over and passed over and passed over and passed over to the point where people were like, how is this place even open?
Yeah,
like,
it's a pretty layered issue, for sure.
So,
And then, yeah, like everyone, like I know I was talking to my dad about it for a company he worked for. It's an insurance company that I'll leave off the air, but they had people who worked for them.
yeah.
That, like, they had to now figure out how to do their insurance claims for the people from their company
Oh,
that
really?
were in the fire that died.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very local one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really wild. So it hit home for
Yeah.
lots and lots of people for sure. And it was just really wild. It's one of those things you look back and you remember kind of where you were when it happened. For me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, I remember as soon as I found out, and like even now thinking back, like not only could I have seen myself and my ex-wife there, but it could have made my son an orphan.
Yeah.
Because I didn't even think of that. He was alive at that point, but he was.
Yeah. So
Crazy.
it's 7 minutes and it's like,
The world's different.
yeah, exactly.
It's crazy.
All it takes.
Wow. So this one's a bit of a bummer.
It is. That's why the warning was up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
So I think next one we should do something a little more
We're gonna,
upbeat.
do a lighthearted one,
Yeah.
but I mean, I know when we wanted to talk about this, I think it's an important thing to talk about.
It's an important thing, and I feel like it being 20 years ago, it is now starting to fall into that. Like people your age are gonna know, but people my son's age,
Yeah, I have no idea.
people maybe like in their 20s probably haven't
No.
even heard about it.
Yeah,
You know,
not at
No,
all.
it's not that like recent living memory, and it
Right.
doesn't have that like 9/11 staying power where it didn't like
It wasn't the whole country.
It wasn't the
It
whole
wasn't
country,
the whole country, and
yeah.
it didn't quite. It's
It's not going to cement in someone's
Thank
memory.
you, because it's not as fixed in the national consciousness as.
And it's not really something that
yeah.
like you regale your kids with the stories of this horrible incident.
No,
you know?
not at all.
So yeah, it's very important. And yeah, when you go out to see a show, whatever show it is, if it's Blue Man Group or a comedy show,
Yeah.
just, you know,
Take a peek,
take
at,
a
the
peek at the exits.
Yeah,
you
you
know,
never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Know your surroundings.
exactly.
To tell people where you're going to be for the night.
Yep. Yeah. For sure.
Lots of little safety things we can all do. That might help us one
Make
day.
make mental note that the doors open out.
Yeah.
When you're
Yeah.
entering a place.
Yeah.
But yeah, literally that to this day when I walk into places, I will kind of just do that. I'll just kind of be like, oh, this exit over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's all I have. My deepest sympathies to anyone
Yeah,
who was affected
for
by this.
real.
This is like
It's-
so heavy. Like I said, leaving my house, I was like, wow, I feel
This is going to be a super downer episode.
so
yeah.
bad. But I think it's good to like just tell the story.
It's very
let people
important,
know.
for sure.
There are people out there still affected by it. So
And if you're a business owner and there's some sort of code that you need to meet, realize it's for a reason and do it.
Yeah.
You know.
for sure.
But I think that's the part where we stop talking.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast. You can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or on Instagram at Inebri-art6. You can email us at Inebri-art@yahoo.com. And make sure you listen to the other podcasts on the Inebri-art Podcast Network, including Bar Talk, Old Colony Cast, Retro Redoctopus, America's Hometown Horror Podcast, and our newest one, Theme Park Legends, a podcast about working at theme parks. What else? And we'll catch you again next time.